You know, there are times even I am amazed at the spread of reviews we do here on AAR. From the high-end PCPs to budget springers, latest CO2 pistols, scopes, targets, tanks, compressors, and most everything in between. Now, I know you can't please everyone, but we do try. This week it's the turn of a pair of budget PCPs. So, if you want low cost and can't decide whether you want a regular rifle or a bullpup, watch on. Blimey, we're doing it again with the different reviews thing. Hello and welcome to AAR on Air. It's a double hitter today from the guys at Hatsan, The Flash. You know, I do believe Gordon's alive. Anyway, enough of that nonsense, on with the double review. I would normally say that all we have here is essentially the same gun, but in a different stock, in order to generate a bullpup on the cheap. Well, it is pretty evident that they have raided the same parts bins for some of the gun, but there are still quite a few differences between the two. Let's start with the rifle version of the Flash. We can't possibly have that every time. The rifle version. It is all black with a very durable thumb-hole polymer stock and is loaded with nice ideas that aren't even available on a lot of high-end PCPs. From the front to start with, it has the QE silencer fitted. I say fitted, it's actually an integral part of the barrel and makes it really pretty quiet, certainly in this sub 12 foot-pound version. It has an overall length of 108 centimetres or 42.5 inches. And it's also pretty light at around 3 kilograms, which makes it nice and easy and light to be carrying around if you're going to be using it for a spot of pest control. The barrel on this is rifled and choked to help increase accuracy, which naturally we'll check out later on. Below the barrel is the air cylinder, which on the rifle is quoted as being 165 cc's and is filled to a maximum pressure of 200 bar. Moving back, we come to that polymer stock, which has a slight stippling to the forestock, and this is also on the grip and on the Flash symbol underneath the bolt. Under the front of this is a weaver rail to add bipods or the like, which is a feature not available on some higher end brands. On the underside we find the gauge, which is a much better place to put a gauge rather than under the front of the barrel, which often happens on a lot of guns. Now, at first glance it would look like the filler port is at the side of the gauge a la BSA, but it is actually in the front end, which is more Viroc style and has a nicely recessed cover or infill to keep the dust out. This needs poking through with the filler probe when you're filling it. Still moving down that shrouded barrel, we come to the block, which has a double rail on the top for your preferred scope fitting and accommodates both 11mm and 22mm dovetail and weaver mounts. Again, another really nice touch that often isn't available on those high-end guns. This is a bolt action and it's on the right-hand side and isn't interchangeable, and whilst it isn't the smoothest action you may try, now is a good time to remind you that this is a budget gun, and expecting the same smooth action of a £1,500 rifle is probably a little bit too much to ask, but it is defined and simple enough to use in action. This naturally cocks the rifle and cycles and loads from the 14-shot magazine in 177 or the 12-shot from a 22 caliber version. Below this is the trigger. Hatsan call it the Quattro trigger, which is a two-stage item and is classed as a fully adjustable match grade item. The first stage is quite short rather than long and vague. The second stage is not too heavy either, but as I've already said, this is fully adjustable to suit the individual's needs. The safety is in front of the trigger and is small enough not to get in the way, and it's easy enough to operate with your trigger finger, with a forward to fire and pull back for safe. Moving further back, we come to that thumb hole stock, which I would go further to call a skeleton stock, with the ambidextrous rounded cheek piece or Monte Carlo cheek piece. This is finished off with a non-adjustable rubber butt pad on the end. You know, in use, this does feel a lot like my shotgun, with the thicker forestock and distance from shoulder to trigger. The bolt action is set slightly forward still and wouldn't really be a gun to start most of the younger shooters with, because it would be a bit of a stretch for them. With the walk around completed, it's time to put this over the chronograph to check the power level. This particular one is the 177 version, and using the 8.4 4-grain pellets, this was producing 792 feet per second, which is 11.76 foot-pounds, or a smidge under 16 joules. Now at this price it certainly isn't going to be regulated, but it was pretty consistent with that power level, which should be good for the accuracy test. Just before we do that, let's take a look at loading the magazine first. Loading the magazines is, first of all, turn the top cover anti-clockwise, then load your first pellet skirt first. Then start and move it back clockwise, dropping in each pellet nice and simply as you go. That first pellet will hold itself in place, so no worries there, and they do drop through really nice and simply. There's no skirt deformation. Now this is an all plastic item, but it seems pretty strong, pretty durable. Once you're all loaded up, there's a simple process of pull back on the bolt, pull it all the way back until it locks into place, slide your full magazine in, and you're ready to go. Target work time then. Time really then to drop a scope on this and punch some holes in paper. I have one of the new Vayrons with the new illuminated reticle with me, so time to drop this on and put them both through their paces. Quite happy with those. Not bad for a budget gun, really not bad. Now shooting this was a bit of a shock, to be fair. I've already said the action isn't the smoothest you could use, but with the new Veyron, with its new reticle on board, this was way better out at the targets than I thought it was going to be. I simply zeroed the gun in with one magazine's worth and then straight on to the target and filming the results. And I think they speak for themselves. Just remember, this is a budget gun, not some out-and-out target rifle. Yes, the scope does help an awful lot, but I'm still very pleasantly surprised. Time now to bring out the bullpup version and see how they compare. Naturally and instantly, it's the length that is the first thing to hit you. The bullpup is much shorter at around 81 centimetres or 32 inches in overall length. The interesting thing to note here is that the shorter length is not at the expense of the barrel, which is exactly the same as the rifle. Again, this is fitted with the QE or Quiet Energy Silencer Shroud. Now, having this length barrel usually means the action, in this case the bolt action, is set quite far back and not midships as you would find on a more expensive and more purpose-made bullpup. This can make the cocking a little less easy, but they have fitted an oversized bolt to make it a little bit easier. Weight-wise, this tops the scales at 3.17 kilograms unscoped. With regard to the cylinder, Hatsan claim the bullpup also has a 165cc item, but it is noticeably shorter than the rifle and would probably, well, I would question those figures to be fair, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. Whilst we're talking about the air, the maximum pressure is again 200 bar. The pressure gauge on the bullpup is nicely positioned away from the front of the gun and is on the right hand side. It's a good size and is easily read with both figures and colour coding to show the ideal pressures. The filler port is again on the front end, right out on the cylinder, and has a neat plug to keep the dirt out. Talking about the rehashing of the flash into a shorter stock to make a bullpup, this is partly evidenced by the scope mount on the original rifle that is partly covered up on the bullpup by quite a comfortable cheek rest. And it's also a mounting point for the raised scope rail, which is really quite long, to make it pretty easy to get a scope to fit in an ideal position for anyone really. Again, this rail is both 11 and 22 mil or dovetail and weaver fitting, so no excuses that your scope mounts don't fit. With this rail being raised, it also gives a lot more flexibility on your preferred height mounts. There is a little bad news here though, I'm afraid, for the lefties, that this bullpup is really set up for right-handed shooters, and that cheek rest position is really no good for lefties. It is a right-hander, but it is possible to use it left-handed, it's just a little less comfortable. And that bolt action would appear to be very intrusive for a left-handed shooter, but it's just far enough forward to not get in the way. The stock is again polymer based on this version and has a grippy stippling in all the right places with a pistol grip thumb hole design. The butt pad is also adjustable to help with comfort and again that scope alignment. The trigger is also that match grade adjustable two-stage item with quite a nice short first stage. The safety is exactly the same as the rifle and is an in-trigger guard item with a push forward for fire, pull back for safe. Finally, you also have a rail on the bottom to be able to fit whatever takes your fancy. Again, a nice touch. Power-wise again, it's pretty much identical to its longer sibling. This is the 22 caliber version, and using standard 15.89 grain pellets, it saw 574 feet per second, which is 11.6 foot-pounds or 15.8 joules. Now, to try and keep things even, I thought it was best to fit the same new Veyron 6-24 IR for the target work. So, with the same scope and over the same distance, time to see how they compare with the different calibers, and if this 2.2 is as capable as the 177 version was earlier. Here goes.
Right, testing today, and boy is it cold out here. It's an October day, the sun's coming through and it's a beautiful blue sky and I'm stood in between the trees, but it's a bit windy and it is really cold. My hands are going blue, but let's give it a go. Just starting to get into one big hole now, or not big, quite small to be fair, probably smaller than the size of my fingernail. Really nice, a little stiff on the magazine as I said, and the bolt, but really nice, accurate little gun. Yeah. People asked me recently as far as my target is concerned and backstop. Now, I suppose one of my big phrases is stay safe and shoot safe. And when I say that, I mean it in all ways. So do make sure you've got a backstop. Somebody questioned mine. Mine is a huge pile of softwood timbers, logs, and beyond that there are acres and acres of fields. So I really don't have an issue and I take it quite seriously. But, valid point, but don't worry, I've got a huge backstop. That wind is really getting up and it's cold.
Blimey, you really can't complain about that. Out at 40 metres and a sub 12 foot-pound 2.2 caliber budget bullpup. I'm quite pleased. At this point, it's probably worth letting you know the price of these two budget PCPs. The Flash rifle comes in at around £280 UK mark and does include 2 magazines and a single shot tray and the filler probe and most everything else you need in the box. Now, by comparison, the bullpup is just slightly more expensive and is just below the £300 UK price and also includes 2 magazines, single shot tray, etc, etc. So these two aren't going to break the bank at those prices. Of course, you aren't getting a £1,500 gun and the associated smooth actions and match grade barrels and all those things at these prices. But you are getting an entry into the world of PCPs. The rifle would be too long for juniors and new starters, but the bullpup may well fit them nicely. Either gives you a surprisingly good level of accuracy and enough hitting power to sort out some of those pests that may need clearing. All this can be done in relative silence with the QE versions and also have a level of safety with those gauges being sensibly positioned. Overall, not a bad couple of accurate entry-level PCPs. For the money, these are capable of a surprisingly enjoyable experience. Talking about enjoying, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this review. If so, please give us the old thumbs up, subscribe, hit the old alarm notification bell, and feel free to share this with your friends. As always, there are all these places to get involved with and join in the chats. The merch is available from the AAR website. A big thank you to Vector Air, who have done it again, getting hold of more and more guns for me to review for you. They always seem to step up to the mark. Of course, the big thank you goes out to you guys for watching. As always, it just leaves me to say, stay safe and shoot safe, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye for now.